In this video, as it's my last one for this year, we're going to go through a 2020 roundup. I've got my top reads, my top watches, my top plays, and also my top 10 biggest whale harpoons. And also probably the one that you're most interested in, how much have I spent on comics this year? Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Maddogg, and we're back with the final video of 2020. I know that this hasn't been a great year for many of you, but there has still been some highlights throughout it. I thought it'd be important to try and end this year in a positive way, so here today we're just going to go through all the things that I've enjoyed. There should be timestamps down below for the different categories, unless I got really drunk in the editing and uploading phase of this, in which case I apologise in advance. But we're going to start this off with my top 10 reads of 2020. Obviously at the beginning of this year I didn't have this channel, and it was only about a month or so ago that I realised I was going to do this video, so obviously this might not be a comprehensive list, but it's the best that I've done with the time that I've got. And you're probably thinking, don't worry too much because it's going to be much better handled this time next year. Well, I can't even really promise that. But my number 10 pick is Hulk by Jeff Loeb. So I read the omnibus this year and I also did a review of it, so I won't really say too much here. I've got quite a lot of stuff that I've got to go through, but it was big blockbuster action. It was pretty much the Hulk taking on the majority of the Marvel universe, and it had great art from Ed McGuinness throughout, so I definitely recommend this one. Number 9, it was something that I read for Halloween. I've got Nailbiter. I really enjoyed the premise with this one, and the first 10 issues I pretty much just read in one sitting. Again, I did a review for this one, so I'm not going to say too much here, but I just felt like the ending wasn't really much of a payoff for the setup that came from the beginning, and as well I kind of felt like it forgot about the main characters. But if you're looking for something that's more about the journey than the destination, this was a good one, and that's why it's getting number 9. Number 8, I read this at the beginning of the year before I even had this channel. It's Superman Secret Origins. Written by Jeff Johns, so if you're watching this on New Year's Eve, you definitely need to take a drink when I say that name. This was just a really fun Superman story. It was only about 6 issues long, so it was really quick to get through, but it was just an uncomplicated and enjoyable Superman story with great art from Gary Frank. Number 7, and I know a few people might expect this to be a bit higher, but it's Kill or Be Killed by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I love this creative team and I did enjoy the majority of this story. Again, not just plugging other videos, but I did do a review of this one as well, and it is really enjoyable. It's a great vigilante story that takes itself a little bit more seriously than something like Kick-Ass, but I did feel like some of the narrative devices that it kept using and just kept beating you over the head with did make this story not as enjoyable as some of the other ones that I've read from this creative team. Number 6, this was my first omnibus for 2020. It's Star Wars by Jason Aaron. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, but I've never really gotten into the extended universe or anything like that, but this was a story that felt like it was written perfectly for someone like myself. It was set between Star Wars episodes 4 and 5. It didn't expect you to have read some of the novels that had come out in the 80s, but this was just fun storytelling, and it didn't feel like everything else that's been written by Jason Aaron before. And if I'm honest, the feelings that I wanted from the sequel trilogy was what I got from this book. Number 5 is a book that I've conveniently got next to me anyway. It's Venom by Donny Cates Volume 1. Obviously, yeah, this isn't the completed run, and I haven't even read Absolute Carnage or anything like that yet, but I haven't read a Venom solo comic in I think near enough 10 years. Donny Cates is a writer that is slowly becoming everybody's favourite, so reading this was just something that made me realise what the hype was about. This is just a great story about Eddie Brock that returns him to form with the character. You've got quite a personal story with his dad. Miles Morales shows up throughout it as well, and the art by Ryan Stegman is second to none. Honestly, this guy is pretty much becoming the new Ryan Otley for me. I loved near enough every panel within this. I got this as a Christmas gift from my girlfriend, and it was a great way to start the year of 2020 when it comes to reading. Number 4, and this was the first review that I ever did on this channel, but it's the Batman by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale omnibus. So yeah, I am kind of cheating here because you've got Haunted Night, Long Halloween, Dark Victory, and Catwoman When in Rome. And I enjoyed all 4 of those stories within this book, and the reason why it's not higher on this list is solely because of the fact that Batman the Long Halloween is so overhyped. So I went into this expecting like an 11 out of 10 story, and I pretty much got like a 7 or an 8, but because of the fact that it was overhyped, it did sort of go a bit down in my estimations. Still, I can't deny how much fun I had with this book. It is something that I could easily go back and read again, so it has to make its place on this list. Number 3, and it was a book that I read just before I started this channel, it's Punisher Max by Jason Aaron. The Punisher is one of my favourite characters. I love all the street level superheroes within the Marvel universe, but there's just something about the Punisher, and I've got every Punisher omnibus that's come before, but I genuinely think Punisher Max might just be my favourite. It's because of the fact that it's set outside of the continuity, so I could just jump into this. I think I just picked it up one weekend because I saw it on my shelf and I realised I hadn't flicked through it in a while, and I was instantly sucked back into it again. I had read this once before, but I forgot just how much I enjoyed this. So admittedly, yeah, it is a bit of a cheat, but if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I always cheat on my lists. But not on my girlfriend, so that's got to count for something. But if anybody asked me to recommend them a Punisher book, I think this would be the one that I'd recommend over stuff like Greg Rucka or even Garth Ennis. It was just so accessible, it didn't expect you to know what was happening in the Marvel universe at that time, and for that reason, it has to make its way on this list. Number 2, and some people are probably going to be pissed that this made it higher than Kill or Be Killed, but it's Aquaman by Jeff Johns. One of the most recent reads that I had, so maybe that's why it ranked so high in my list. This was just a book that was fun start to finish. It also allowed me to reminisce about the times when I was first getting into comics and single issues. This has held up well, and the same can't really be said for other New 52 titles, but this was just a fun adventure with great art throughout, so for that reason it's getting the penultimate spot and it's getting that silver medal. Before I get into my number one read, I do have to give an honourable mention to Project X Challenger's Cup Noodle. The reason why this isn't making it properly onto this list is because, as you all already know, I am not a manga guy. However, this is a book that I've been interested in reading for years, but it's a story about the way that the cup noodle got created, and I didn't realise just how much of a struggle that they had at the beginning. This was a heartwarming, charming, and in some parts really sad story that just captivated me from beginning to end, and I think I read it in one sitting. I love noodles, they're pretty much equal with women and comic books, so the fact that this story even exists is one that appealed to me from the beginning, but it actually met the expectations that I'd had. The fact that I've been waiting to read this book for so many years and it still paid off those expectations means that there's no way that I can do this video without at least mentioning it. But my number one read for 2020 is Star Wars Darth Vader by Kieran Gillen. Now I know people say the Charles Soule sequel run is even better than that, but I haven't had a chance to read that yet, so at this point I'm just talking about the Kieran Gillen run. But my god was this fun, I enjoyed this so much. It was one of those books where I hated myself for reading it so quickly, but at the same time I just couldn't stop myself. If you're a Star Wars fan like me, then this is pretty much the greatest thing ever. If you like that scene in Rogue One at the end with Darth Vader just mowing through everyone, this is pretty much an entire book of that. But at the same time, if you've never watched anything Star Wars before, this would pretty much force you to become a fan. I enjoyed every issue of this, there wasn't a single dull moment in it for me. I loved the killer droid, I loved Dr. Aphra to the point where I'm going to get that omnibus next year. But this Star Wars series was so good that I'm going to get that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic one that's just been announced as well. I'm fully committed now to Star Wars comics, and it's as a result of Star Wars Darth Vader by Kieran Gillen. If I'm being honest, nothing that I've read this year even came close to it, so of course it's going to take the number one pick. The next category is going to be my top 5 plays of 2020. I love video gaming, but unfortunately I didn't get as much time to game this year as I'd like, because obviously I was trying to get as much content on the channel as I could. Admittedly, that's the reason why a lot of these categories are lacking. It's because of the fact that I really wanted to get this channel up and running. However, there was still 5 that I remember as really enjoying at the time when I played them. Yeah, some of them might have come out a year or two before, but the fact of the matter is I played them in 2020. My top 10 reads list had books that were coming out 20 years earlier, so the same rules apply for every other category. And number 5, and it's kind of comic related, it is the Black Sad video game. I actually bought this for Shadowcat originally, but then I ended up getting invested in this. Yeah, we had to download the update patch because before that it was really buggy, but once you ended up playing it, it was a really good game. It's kind of like a Telltale game, but if they didn't hold your hand so much, and the art style's spot on with the comics that inspired it. The music's also phenomenal, the voice acting's also great, and I don't really hear too many people talking about this game. So if you enjoy the Black Sad comic, I definitely recommend checking this out. Number 4, and yeah, I know that this game was old before 2020 even began, but I finally got around to playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I know some people might expect this to be much higher up on the list, but it's kind of in the same way that I feel like you're either a Fallout guy or a Skyrim guy. I think you're either a GTA person or a Red Dead Redemption person. And I grew up in Grove Street, so I'm always going to be GTA, but I still did really enjoy my time with Red Dead Redemption 2. I did just feel like there was some issues with the pacing and stuff like that, but I can't really deny how beautiful this game was and how much of a great time that I had. But again, similar to Kill or Be Killed, it might be the fact that so many people had hyped this up before I even went into it, that's the reason it is a little bit lower on my list than some people might expect it to be. Number 3, I've got God of War. Yeah, I've wanted to play this game for a while, but I just never got around to picking it up, and I really wish that I would have done sooner. What an absolutely beautiful game, and I'm half tempted to pick up a PS5 just so that I can get the sequel once it comes out. I love the fact that you pretty much felt like Thor throughout it, because you can obviously summon his axe back to him in the same way that Thor can do with Mjolnir. You had a child AI character that by the end I stopped trying to actually kill. The fights and the set pieces in this were great, and it was just a storyline that I really enjoyed. Number 2, and people are going to be annoyed that this is higher than either God of War or Red Dead Redemption 2, but it's Crash Bandicoot 4. I was always more of a Spyro guy when I was growing up, but when I played the remastered trilogy of Crash and the remastered trilogy of Spyro, I ended up enjoying the Crash trilogy a lot more. So when this new game came out, I was really excited for it, and it actually subverted all the expectations that I had. I am not good at games, I'm just going to admit that right now, and this was near enough impossible for me. This game genuinely made me feel old. I couldn't remember how I used to play games earlier. All the stuff with the masks that you're incorporating, just the general platforming and layout design, getting a chance to play as Dingo Dial, Torna, and even Neo Cortex at some point just really made this a Crash game that was for the ages. And my number 1 pick for the top plays of 2020 is of course Cyberpunk 2077. Now I'm just mad dogging you there, I didn't actually play this, but the fact that this game is as bad and as buggy as it is has made it one of the most interesting watches of this year. My genuine top game of this year was Ghost of Tsushima. Sucker Punch is a great company to me already. I loved the Infamous games when I was growing up. I feel like they kind of define the early PS3 generation, and when I played Infamous Second Son, I wasn't really as impressed with it, so when I saw Ghost of Tsushima, I was interested, but I didn't really know if Sucker Punch might have lost the touch. But this game was just great. I love samurai films, I love samurai culture, so this was just a great amalgamation of the two. Was it a perfect game? No, not by any stretch of the imagination, but the fact that it was as good as it is, and the fact that it was kind of built up, and I thought that this might have gone the way that Cyberpunk 2077 actually went, it's going to get me number one pick for this year. Next up, and due to the fact that the pandemic happened, we've got my top one movie that I saw in the cinema. So I only saw one movie in the cinema this year because obviously everything that's gone on, so it's the default winner, and I can't even believe that I'm saying this, but my top one movie of 2020 was Sonic the Hedgehog. This film was okay, it was better than I expected it to be. I kind of wish that there was a special feature on the Blu-ray so that the entire movie would play with that hideous original rendering of Sonic that we saw. But yeah, this movie wasn't bad. I don't really think that it would be my top one movie if it came out in any other year, but well done, Sonic the Hedgehog, you did it. Next category is my top 10 TV watches of the year. With the pandemic, working from home and being locked down, I managed to catch up on a lot of TV shows, some of which I'd been putting off for years, so there might be some that started in like 2005 that I finally just got around to watching, but just allow it, it's my list. Number 10 is Ricky Gervais's Afterlife. I watched season 1 when it was originally released, but I was expecting it to be a lot funnier than it was. Because of that, I put off watching season 2, but then my girlfriend's mum recommended that we just give it a try, so we watched the entire thing again, and I think because my expectations were a little bit lower, I enjoyed it a lot more. I don't really think it's great, and I can't really recommend it to too many people. I much prefer Ricky Gervais's stand-up comedies and stuff like that, but it's still quite an intriguing story, and I don't really know what they're going to do with season 3. I don't know if he's just going to be miserable to everybody for another season, because it didn't really feel like Ricky Gervais's character had that much development to him, so I'm not really sure if they're going to try and develop this a little bit more as it moves into next year. Number 9, and I have to preface this one by saying that I love a little bit of trash TV, so my number 9 pick is Love is Blind. This wasn't your stereotypical Love Island or anything like that, it was kind of more like a social experiment crossed with some kind of psychological thriller. I thought the people being in the pods and talking to other people and coming to the decision on if they should propose or not, I thought that was pretty much going to be the full show. But you get to about the second episode, about half the people are married off, and it's like, yeah, we're just going to follow them now and see if they actually want to get married. If I was giving away an award that's like my most unexpected watch of this year, well, it's probably going to be what my number 1 pick is, but this would definitely be runner-up. I couldn't help but love some of the characters. I just wanted to punch Carlton in the face. I wanted to punch Barnett in the face. Jessica just kept pissing me off all the time. I just wanted Mark to man up. But at the end of the day, I couldn't help denying that I really loved this show. Number 8, and following up with the trash TV, I've got Selling Sunset. My supervisor at work pestered me to watch this. I love $1 Million List in New York, and I like looking at rich apartments, rich houses, and try and visualize that if I worked hard enough, I still might not be able to afford one of them. But Selling Sunset ropes you in with that voyeurism of looking at all these houses and wishing that you could live in one, but then you end up sticking around for the characters and all the drama. But this is like the most passive aggressive group of people I've ever seen. They literally get offended by anything and everything, so it was amazing to watch. I liked debating if Christine was ever going to get married. I liked wondering how Chriselle's ever going to recover from everything. I loved seeing the fact that they never actually sold that $80 million complex that they were trying to sell. But yeah, this show was surprisingly great, and I'd recommend checking it out if you like perving on other people's houses as well. Oh, side note, I haven't started watching The Mandalorian yet, so that's why it's not on this list, and I haven't watched stuff like The Umbrella Academy or some of the other general shows that you probably expect to be on this list. I tend to like waiting for a show to be finished, or at least have a good couple of seasons so that I can binge it, so some of the more obvious choices probably aren't going to be on here. And no more evident than the fact that my number 7 pick is Death Note. My girlfriend pestered me to watch this for ages, but all I'd ever seen was the Netflix advert. However, she sat me down, she forced me to watch it, and this was really enjoyable. Considering again, like I said, not a manga guy, this was something that I couldn't help wanting to watch. The concept of it's so unique and intriguing, and it only really got better once Elle was introduced into it. I loved seeing these two playing a mental chess match with one another to try and trip the other one up, but of course it never really got past that point, because then something happens in like the last 10 or so episodes that just completely changes the tone of it. But still, the enjoyment that I had up until that point meant that it does solidify itself as a number 7 pick, even if the destination doesn't really pay off for the journey that you've had. Number 6, and if we talked about journeys that drastically oversold on the destination, I've got How I Met Your Mother. This is one of those shows that I passed up for ages because of the fact that I just thought it was like a Friends clone, but then I happened to watch the Slap Bet episode and I knew that I wanted to watch this full thing. And the first 8 seasons of this is some of the best TV comedy that I've seen in years. I love Barney Stinson, he reminded me a lot of myself at university, you know, don't ask for any more stories on that. And I like the narrative concept that you know that he already meets the mother and you're always wondering if he's already crossed paths with it. However, of course, yeah, I was outraged by just how fucking awful the last season was, and in particular the ending. It's like they couldn't add more insult to injury if they tried, so because of that, this lost itself a higher position in this list. Number 5, this was my favourite TV show growing up, but I hadn't watched it in years. That is 24. As soon as this lockdown happened, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna revisit some shows from my childhood. 24 was my favourite show back then, and yeah, it hasn't aged particularly well now, but it still really holds up. Season 1, Season 3 and Season 5 are some of my favourite seasons of any TV show ever. And you know what, for the most part they hold up, because I heard people saying that 24 is only really good because it's got cliffhangers that make you want to watch the next episode, and then nothing happens for 40 minutes and there's just another cliffhanger. But honestly, I was looking out intentionally for that as I was watching the show, but was still invested what was happening in every single episode. And nothing's ever really had a concept that's been as intriguing and as well put together as the real-time format, you know, the 24 hours for every season that this show did. Number 4, and I heard that this has got a cult following, but I've never really met somebody that's watched it as well, and it's Schitt's Creek. This was a really weird show for me because I watched season 1 and I didn't really enjoy it, but I still really wanted to watch the rest of it. But to me, this is pretty much the comedy equivalent of Breaking Bad, because Breaking Bad is great because you get to see a character transform into somebody that you'd never think he'd become. Schitt's Creek does the exact same thing with the Rose family. Even if every episode isn't laugh out loud funny and some of the jokes don't really pay off until later seasons, it's one of those shows where you're following these characters and you're so invested in them, and in the same way that you end up hating Walter White by the end of Breaking Bad, I ended up loving every character in Schitt's Creek. I even loved Roland and Moira, who at the beginning I couldn't stand and I was low-key hoping that they'd kill off. But I loved Johnny, I loved Alexis, and David ended up being the character that really grew on me as well, and the storyline with Ted ended up breaking my heart. And I'm not really somebody who cries when I watch something, but this was the thing that got me closest to tears. Number 3 is You, but this was another one that was a really interesting kind of psychological thriller, because if you didn't already know, You is effectively following the story of somebody who is stalking other characters. I'm one of those people that I think season 1 was much better than season 2, and I know a lot of people don't really agree with me on that. I feel like season 1 was the purest form of this show that we're ever going to get, whereas season 2 was trying really hard just to subvert your expectations, so it'd put you in situations that you've already seen in season 1 just so that they could go, look, we haven't done the same thing this time. But still, this was a show that I was on the edge of my seat for, and I couldn't help just wanting to watch more and more. Number 2, and getting that silver medal, is Better Call Saul season 5. This is one of the only shows that I am watching episode to episode because I'm just enjoying it so much, and it's so addicting. I know a lot of people bailed on Better Call Saul from season 1, and I think it's something that you should go back and revisit. I know it's quite a bit of a commitment, but just get through to season 2, and then all of a sudden you're going to realise exactly what everybody's talking about. Do I think that this is as good as Breaking Bad? I don't really know. Every time I watch a season of Better Call Saul, I end up wanting to watch Breaking Bad again, so, you know, I can't really separate the two for my money. The one thing that I will say, though, is that Better Call Saul has to work 100 times harder to get half the respect of Breaking Bad. Because Breaking Bad is a concept that already sounds like something that would be good, whereas Better Call Saul sounds like a lot of things that already exist, and sounds like it'd be much more boring. And as well, the fact that you know that it's come from the creator of Breaking Bad makes your expectations so much higher. But the entire season was tense, everything with Lalo, especially when he was transporting that money across the desert. I actually prefer Mike much more in Better Call Saul than I did in Breaking Bad, and I am so looking forward to the last season. But regardless, whatever they give me, I know I'm really looking forward to it. But not more so than the 3rd season of my number 1 pick, and of course, it is going to be Cobra Kai. How on earth is this show this good? That's the question that I ask myself every time I think about Cobra Kai. Now yeah, I love The Karate Kid. My mum really enjoyed it, so of course I had to watch it when I was growing up. And I'm not gonna lie, I always wanted to be more like Johnny, because obviously he was physically much better than Daniel. So Cobra Kai gave me everything that I wanted from a TV show. And then it just did more, and weirdly, I didn't even hate all the teenage characters, because I normally hate TV shows where the main focus is love triangles with people in high school. I really love what they've set up for season 3 as well. I'm hoping it's going to be something like Johnny and Daniel vs Chris, and luckily we only have to wait a few weeks, but I was one of those people that passed on this show because of the fact that it was a YouTube Red show. YouTube Red pretty much advertised this and that Logan Paul Flat Earth documentary, so it's a blessing in disguise that Netflix got the rights to this. I probably never would have given it a chance if they hadn't, so I'm so glad that they did, because this was honestly my favourite watch of this year. Now, before we get into my top 10 biggest whales that I harpooned, or all the money that I've spent on comics, I'd just like to ask that if you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. This has been my first year on comics, and honestly, I've just been in first gear. So if you want to see just how mad the Maddogg can get, make sure that you subscribe and click the bell notification so that you never miss a video. As well, we've got a Reddit page r/Maddogg comic community. Recommend checking it out, giving us a follow, and send some of your stuff in there. You can talk about whatever you want, it's pretty chill. Now this next list was a fun one to do, and this is the top 10 biggest whales that were harpooned in 2020. And I'm not including any reprints or anything like that, so Annihilation and the Daredevil by Bendis omnibuses are not going to make it into this list. Coming in at number 10, I've got the X-Men Mutant Massacre omnibus. This only came out a few years ago, but it's already gone into whale status. The reason why it's making it onto this list is because I got this for cheaper than what it was when it was actually in print. A great dude on one of the Facebook groups that I'm in was selling it, and he sold it me for a really good price along with the Wolverine by Jason Aaron omnibus volume 1. Number 9 is the Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens omnibus. This wasn't something that I majorly wanted, but when I saw it out in the wild and the fact that it just happened to be there, I knew I had to get this one. It's written by Paul Dini, and I've heard nothing but good things about this, and the fact that it was as out of print as it is, and I just happened to stumble on it on a comic book shelf, made it one of the best finds of this year. Number 8, and again it's because of the fact that I found it out in the wild, you might be able to see it over my shoulder here, but it's the Fade Out by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. When the second lockdown happened, I was contacting comic shops and just seeing what they had on the shelves, and Forbidden Planet Wolverhampton happened to have this book, and it also happened to be part of their mega sale. So I got this for £18, which is insane, and like I said for Mutant Massacre, I don't think I would have got it for that much when it was actually in print. Number 7, and you're going to notice that the majority of the books that are on this list are on here because of the story of how I found them, rather than the books themselves, but it's the Animal Man by Grant Morrison omnibus. I happened to find this on a Facebook marketplace page. The person was just selling it off for £30. I thought I was going to have to go the deluxe edition route, and at the time when I got that book, I don't actually think the second deluxe edition was announced. So it's such a good job that I found it, and it was actually as a result of someone, I think it was in the Omnibus Collectors group, they just said if there's anybody that needs this book, it's here, go and get it. I believe your name was Michael, so on the off chance that you're watching this video, thank you for helping me to secure one of the biggest whales of this year. Number 6, and before I say this one, I'd like to remind you for the third time in this video, I'm definitely not a manga guy, but it's going to be Project X Challenges Cup Noodle. Actually, it's just going to be the entire Project X Challenges line. These were books that I wanted ever since I started watching iFanboy because they just said about how good they were. I love stories that are based on true events and against the odd types of narratives. All 3 of these main books are exactly that, and my girlfriend somehow managed to find me every single one. I didn't realise that manga could have whales in the same way that we do in comics, so the fact that I managed to get all 3 of these this year as a result of her help means that it's also going to get a place on this list. Number 5, and the fact that this is only getting 5th place just means how good of a year I had when it came to whales, but it's Punisher by Rick Remender. Again, this was as a result of my girlfriend. Actually, I think the majority of this list were actually as a result of her, which proves that she is much better at whale hunting than I am. Rick Remender is a writer that I really enjoy, and this was also one of the only books of his that I was missing. She somehow managed to find it, and she told me that she did it just by Google searching and hoping for the best. So I don't really know the exact ins and outs of how she managed to find this, but she somehow did. It's somehow in the dog pound, and it's making it onto this list. Number 4, and if you would have told me at the beginning of this year that I was going to get this book, I would have thought this would have been my biggest whale harpooning of this year. But it's going to be the Wolverine and the X-Men omnibus. I happened to find this book. Like, there was a guy that was selling a few books. One of them was the Secret Warriors omnibus, and I messaged him and I arranged to buy it, and then like a few weeks later he said, is there anything else that you're looking for? I had a look at his post and there was nothing that I wanted, and I just happened to say that the only thing that I'm really looking for at the moment is Wolverine and the X-Men. And he just happened to say that he's got it, but he's charging a little bit too much from what I could afford for the month. So I did say that unfortunately I'm just going to have to step away, and he came back and he offered me a really good deal for this book. Because obviously with this being the year of the reprints, I knew that books that I was going to buy that might be whales, I had to have a justifiable price, and I still managed to get this one for undercover, so I'm really happy with this because it was the last Wolverine omnibus that I needed now that the reprint of volume 1's come out. Number 3, and again another massive whale. I can't believe that this is only making it into the 3rd position, but it's going to be the Colossal Conan the Cimmerian. Yeah, I can't take any credit for this one. It was Shadowcat who found this, and I still don't really know how she did that. There might be another similar whale that's going to feature in the upcoming haul, so maybe look out for that one. But the Colossal Conan just as a series is something that I didn't think I'd own any of them, and the longer it's been since they've been released, the less likely it is that I was going to get them. And sometimes you get a whale delivered to you and it's not really as good as you built it up in your head, but this still has that wow factor. The runner-up, and I'm sure that a few people who've watched this channel before know the story behind this one, which is the Thor by J. Michael Straczynski omnibus. I know that this isn't the best Thor run or anything like that, but this was just one that was symbolic to me. Because I originally had this book when it was coming out, but I had to sell it because I didn't really have too much money, and I had stuff like driving lessons and college, and my dad got made redundant at that time. I happened to find somebody who was selling one with a custom dust jacket, but when I got it, the book was in really bad condition. it felt like something that was like a copy rather than the actual book. So I ended up sending it back, and I thought that I was never going to get this, and then literally 3 days after I sent that one back to that dude, somebody had it for less than the price than I bought that custom one for. So yeah, throughout life we're always going to have our ups and downs, and this book symbolised when I was at a low point, but now it also symbolises that I'm past that. But my number one biggest whale that I harpooned, it at one point was the biggest whale that I could think of, is the Captain Britain omnibus. It's right here, and I am still scared to touch it, I'm still scared to open it, I still don't even really believe that I've got it in my collection. I feel like I might have gone crazy with the fact that I wanted this book so much, to the point where I just imagine it's there now so that I can sleep at night. This was the anniversary gift that my girlfriend got for me, and I couldn't imagine anything better. I got her the Akira box set, and I felt like that wasn't enough because of how well she did. So for as negative of a year as 2020's been, there has been some highlights to it, and one of them for me was the fact that I no longer have to look for this book. But honestly, every time that Omar released a new reprint announcement, we were panicking because we thought it was going to be Captain Britain. But now it's time for the part of the video that I pretty much clickbaited you into watching for. This is how much did I spend on comics this year. But just to clarify, anything that was a gift like me Captain Britain, me Punisher by Rick Remender, or the Colossal Conan the Cimmerian aren't going to count towards the total because I don't know how much you paid for them, and I don't want to ask. I feel like that's a bit disrespectful if I do that. This is just how much did I pay for comics this year, and obviously I've had some really good deals. There's been some books that I've paid more than I'd hoped for, so I'm not really going to give you a full breakdown of the cost of every single book that I brought, but I have checked through all my records and I've cross-checked with all the stuff in my hauls, and this is as accurate as I could find. First up was my January haul, and as you can see, it's a little bit on the skinny side compared to some of my later hauls. This was before I started doing the channel, and obviously there was some fallout to the Amazon Germany sale that had happened in the year before. So I totaled this up and I spent about £355. Then we've got February, and at this point this was the biggest haul that I'd ever had. I got some major whales throughout this. As you can see, this is the month that I got X-Men Mutant Massacre, but Amazon had some 3 for 2 sales on and stuff like that, so this month I spent £631. March, as you can see, it was when I was moving my collection around. I was planning to start doing videos on this channel, so I don't unfortunately have the number for that month. I honestly can't even remember which books I brought. I've tried having a look through my collection, and there's just some gaps in my mind that I can't really figure out exactly what it was that I brought. It's probably for the best because I already feel sick about the amounts that I spent in the first 2 months. Then April comes around, and this was the first month that I started doing videos, so you can watch the full video haul right here. It was also the beginning of lockdown, so I had a lot more disposable income because obviously I wasn't going out as much, and I ended up selling a lot more of my books because I was sitting around them more often. So this month I reckon I spent about £809 on books. Then we come to May, and again I did a video on this. I'm just going to leave the playlist up the top around here. I don't know which side it's going to appear on, but I only spent £10 less than the month before because I reckon I spent about £799. Then we come to June. Again, we're still in lockdown. I know that I'm doing these videos, and if I'm being honest, I did feel pressured to have bigger and better hauls each month, which I know is a little bit stupid and I wouldn't recommend other people doing that, but I always knew that I was spending money that I had that I could comfortably get rid of. So in June it did step up, and I spent about £891 on books. Then came July, and this was the month when my girlfriend really started helping out with the haul, so some of these books were sort of spent between the two of us, and this is when Speedy Hen had that insane sale on where it was like 20% off. This was a massive month, and it was also the biggest viewed haul that I've had on this channel, and I reckon between me and my girlfriend we spent a staggering £1,161. Then came August, and it was still a massive month. Here I've got a £929 spend. September was thankfully less than that. It was a time when we were really struggling to get new books across, and you can tell because I only spent £680. October was my birthday month. I definitely treated myself when we went to Birmingham and visited a lot of comic shops, so in this month I spent about £813. Then last month I knew that I had to spend less, and I thought I spent less than the total that I've actually got here. I've got it around £650. And as you know, my December haul hasn't come out yet. It's going to be on New Year's Day that gets released, so again make sure that you subscribe, click the bell notification. And I'm not going to tell you the books that I did buy here. I thought I spent more in this month than I did in November, but obviously I wanted to make sure that my family had a good Christmas as well, and obviously there's going to be books included in my haul that I got for Christmas, but what I spent in December was approximately £580. So I've got the total right here, and it's absolutely sickening to see, but I reckon that I spent across this year, not including March, £8,298 on comics. That genuinely makes me feel a little bit ill, but at the same time I knew that the money that I spent was my money, and I was happy to spend it at the time that I did, and as an average that means that I spent £754.36 each month. Obviously it's been a pretty weird month, and I've used this to kind of catch up on all the books that I wanted to buy, so I have really used this year to catch up, and I didn't realise it at the time, but like I said, I was trying to get bigger and better hauls just so that you guys enjoyed them more. I did feel like as I was starting this channel that was the only type of video video people would want to see, because they wouldn't really care to see me in any other video. So hopefully I'll be a little bit more responsible next month, because I do want to start saving so that I can get a better house, because of the fact that I need more space for my collection. Like, this room is maxed out. But before this video comes to an end, obviously this is going to be the last one that I did in 2020. I've never really gotten into the story of why exactly I started YouTube, besides the fact that I wanted something to keep me busy during lockdown. I don't really feel too comfortable talking about it now, or the reason why I call myself the Maddogg or anything like that. But as bad as this year has been overall, this channel has been the absolute best thing that has happened to me in a good long while. And it's all as a result of you guys. So when I'm wrapping up 2020, I have to look at the year as a whole. And for me, despite all the bad things, it's still been pretty great because of the fact that I actually got to establish myself on this platform. I am not planning on stopping here. If anything, I am in first gear at the moment, and 2021 is when I'm going to step it up to second. And I just hope that I don't disappoint any of you guys or let any of you down, or that the quality of the videos just drops to the point where you don't care about the channel anymore. I feel blessed that I managed to get over 1,000 subscribers in less than a year. I'm going to use that as motivation to continue moving forward and hopefully make bigger and better videos. But for now, it's time to say goodbye to 2020, look forward to 2021, but comment below what were some of the movies, books, games, or how much did you spend on comics this year? And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like this video, why did you get this far? If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so that you never miss a video. And if you want to support the channel, it is greatly appreciated. I've got Amazon affiliate links down below. Maybe there was one of my top 10 reads that you want to buy. But that's all I've got to say for now, except for to have a great new year, and I can't wait to see you all in 2021. But until then, just make sure that you stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad, all you dogs. Woof woof! See you in the next video.